Easy talking has made me blue, but I love you. I woke up strong.
Okay. I think I'm live. I think. Yeah. Think I'm live. Yeah. Think so. Yes. Hi, good evening. Today is August 20th, 2020. Thursday, August 20th, 2020. This is Don Dyke-Newcomb here in Reno, Nevada. I'm back in Reno, Nevada finally after a few car issues today. After a kind of an out-of-town trip to kind of try to do a quick photo op and turned into an overnight stay. So my apologies. Tonight being night 4 of the Democratic National Convention, and also it's also the last night, the culminating night of the convention, which traditionally involves the Democratic nominee, the Democratic Party the party nominee addressing the convention as a whole to accept the nomination and effectively kick off the general election campaign. And in this case, for one, Joseph E. Biden of Delaware, tonight culminated a nearly 30-year career, a nearly 30-year tour to this moment, or this day. His first campaign run, or first run for the presidency, was in 1988. He started a whistle-stop campaign in Wilmington, Delaware, ironically those. Second attempt in 2008, which actually had which unfortunately in that situation culminated, did not end successfully. And third time was a charm, apparently. In 2020, ran for the presidency, and despite having a few setbacks in the starts, losing the first 2 major contests in Iowa and in New Hampshire, came back in South Carolina to run into Super Tuesday and win a large portion of delegates, and pretty much was unstoppable after that. And having other major candidates in the 2020 Democratic race endorse him after the South Carolina race was a major help in the Super Tuesday sweep. Nevertheless, tonight, night 4, as I was lucky enough to kind of get a briefing this morning with the Biden-Harris team to kind of give a preview of what the message would be tonight. The message was first on family, to effectively introduce Vice President Biden to the country as a family man, but also a president, ready to lead on day 1. And also, they also answered some other questions in the atmosphere of the day, namely kind of a side note that happened this morning. I'm going to kind of go back to the briefing a little bit, but this morning in Connecticut, President Donald J. Trump's campaign manager, Steve Bannon, was arrested this morning on mail fraud charges stemming from a donation scheme, which is a probe regarding the building of the Southern Wall, which was brought up in the press conference this morning. But that kind of took a bit of the air this morning in the national conversation. But going back to tonight, Mr. Biden's nomination, or at least the convention, the message also tonight was leadership, restoration of the country, and also dealing with the situation at hand with the coronavirus, which was kind of on display after the speech, as you saw the Biden-Harris team and their spouses watching fireworks outside with their masks on, and they drive through while standing in front of a drive-through of supporters in Wilmington, Delaware, with the fireworks going off in the front, kind of setting the tone of the moment, so to speak. So, just a quick recap of the night, I guess. I'm forgetting from jumping around saying I am. I'm literally picking up notes as I was kind of getting back into town here. So tonight, the Nevada Dems held a pre-party, kind of a pre-watch party to get people, Nevada Democrats and local Nevada residents and Nevada supporters kind of focused on the mission at hand. And who was up on deck tonight was Senator Jackie Rosen, Lieutenant Governor Kate Marshall, and Nevada State Senators Pat Spearman, and celebrity P.D. Wong, to kind of get people focused on the big mission at hand, and the mission at hand is voting. Get out and vote, get out and vote, get out and vote. And also have fun watching the event tonight. Then leading into the main event tonight here for the National Democratic Party convention of night 4, the culmination. The first speaker up, which there was a bit of controversy about this speaker not getting a role early on, but eventually that answer got answered real quickly. Andrew Yang, famed tech entrepreneur who made a heck of a splash amongst millennials and the Democratic electorate during the race on universal basic income as an issue. Sorry, I'll that document shot. And also had was first up to speak. Then Cory Booker, followed by Senators Tammy Baldwin of Wisconsin and Tammy Duckworth of Illinois. Which both, I'm going to kind of skipped over them real quickly with Cory Booker. Cory Booker made a pretty compelling case, focusing on driving forward and urging action in his speech on night 4, which night 4 being a prominent night on the ticket, gives these speakers a very interesting platform. Senator Baldwin from Wisconsin talked about her personal story involving healthcare and pre-existing conditions, and how, as a young girl, a event occurred that pretty much nearly bankrupted her family, and why healthcare matters. Senator Duckworth talked about her military career and the importance of standing by, of why Joe Biden was going to be a good leader to support the military and support soldiers, support veterans, because of her own personal experience Sorry, tongue-tied. And when she was injured in a helicopter crash in Iraq, and that cost her 2 legs. Sorry, I'll try to wait for a sec. And that Joe Biden is, again, the best candidate to support the military. And also, again, during the speeches, there were obvious attacks on the current incumbent, namely how the current incumbent was not succeeding in fulfilling the mission, as they would say, or succeeding in addressing issues like coronavirus, supporting the military, letting the country down. And again, that was the other narrative going on in the background, kind of setting a contrast between Joe Biden and the current incumbent. And that's what these conventions are designed to do, to present the case to the country and to supporters and likely voters to get them to either move forward to vote with them or to solidify the base. And then second to last, Pete Buttigieg had another speaking role, talking about his experience in the military. And also notable about Pete Buttigieg is that he is the first openly gay presidential candidate to actually win an actual contest and place in a contest, and kind of set a bit of a barrier, broke a bit of a barrier in this 2020 cycle. So his speaking role is notable as well in that regard. And then this was kind of the issue of much contention for many progressives. Michael Bloomberg, former New York City mayor, spoke tonight. And in a funny way, he gave about the same speech he gave in the 2016 convention, basically kind of setting up why Donald Trump was not a suitable president. Well, this time he kind of, I think the notable line in Bloomberg's speech was job performance, not so much job, an applicant now. It's now performance versus credentials. And I wish I could pull that line up offhand that he said, but I think the quote he used precisely was, "Would you hire or would you retain a Donald Trump if he was your employee?" Something to that effect. The reason why also Mr. Bloomberg's presence was a bit controversial was a combination of two things. One, some consider him not of the team, so to speak, because he was a Republican at one time or another. Actually, he was a Republican when he was the mayor of New York City before he became an independent. Also, the pledge that he made to do whatever it took to support Democrat candidates, some have felt that he's not fulfilled that so much in this Democratic cycle. But also, credit, though, to be said that he did address a issue in that he was kind of speaking to a constituency and kind of embodied the presence that he needed to present to the Democratic Party base and to the country on the issue on tax cuts, not entitlements, but the argument that the current incumbent is playing to him, people like Michael Bloomberg and whatnot, and not the rest of the country, the 99%, as they would say. And besides, I think, besides the two controversies of not perceivably, some wondered if he gave that speech to a crowd, and I guess I was listening on the radio on the way in, would it have the same reception that we're having now because there was no crowd influence? He got booed in 2016 for some of his remarks. So there is a bit of a question, would he have gotten booed for this speech tonight? I don't know. I'm going to leave that with you. But so Michael Bloomberg's speech was the precursor to the Biden family, featuring the elder sons and daughters of the vice president, and then Vice President Joe Biden spoke for about 26 minutes tonight, and in his speech, it's the dangers of doing a live shot in public. In his speech, Joe Biden started his speech with a simple phrase, which I thought was notable. "Give people light, and they will find a way," as his opening phrase tonight, his 26-minute speech. And some would say in the course of his career, Joe Biden's known for giving pretty uplifting, pretty upbeat speeches, most of the time. This was one of the more somber, more darker speeches in his time. But some also, again, an analysis I was hearing on the way here, and also kind of reading on my own, I could kind of detect a very serious, somber, direct, commanding tone that, again, I think the moment, or at least Vice President Biden was trying to address. The goal in that moment, obviously, was to seem and present the image of presidential, command and control, addressing the nation as the commander-in-chief. And I'll leave that to you, whether or not you think the whether or not you think that Vice President Biden succeeded in that initiative, in that goal. But again, sober, focused, talked about family, talked about his personal experience, as set, of course, in the briefing. talked about, the big thing he talked about, of course, in his speech was, one of the first things he'll do upon entering office, focusing on addressing the coronavirus pandemic and quote, putting in a national strategy in terms of putting up a national guidelines, rules, mask policies, and things of that nature. He actually set out policy in his speech, which is kind of uniquely interesting for convention speeches because they tend to be broad, but not too depth and detail. But that's what was kind of an interesting point on that point. Focused on unity, focused on talking about bringing the country together and not delving in, essentially in very veiled yet direct ways, veiled attacks at the president, who, side note, President Trump today was just outside of Scranton, Pennsylvania, directly attacking Vice President Biden on basically, quote-unquote, abandoning Scranton, which, side note, Vice President Biden was born in Scranton, but he actually lived there for the first several years of his life and moved away as a young man. So it wasn't a choice, per se, but just the factual side note of record. But still, nevertheless, the president was attempting to try to, take the narrative away a bit from the vice president's address tonight in that presentation, which, again, I'll leave it to you, the public, to decide whether you think that it has or not. But I mentioned it, so there you go. Nevertheless, talked about unity, trying to put set contrasts between himself and the current incumbent. And again, it was more or less a conversation, attempted to present command and control. And then Vice President Biden ended the speech tonight with an Irish poet, Seamus Eady, words of hope and history and the grave. And that's essentially, subsequently, when he effectively attempted to try to have a bit of a mimic of a balloon drop, which in the coronavirus era, as we're having, can't really do that so much with a crowded audience, with live television and whatnot, hence the walking out to the platform outside where they were speaking with vice presidential nominee Kamala Harris and her spouse, along with his spouse Joe Biden, out to watch the fireworks and the drive-through in Wilmington, Delaware. And then essentially the nation and the rest of us watched, and here we are. So the Democrats have concluded their convention in earnest tonight in Delaware and throughout the country and theoretically around the world. Next week, Monday, the Republicans will begin their convention, and they've, at the moment, I don't know what to say at this point, because I don't know what could be in that convention at this moment. They've actually kept at this moment a lot under the vest at this moment. Sorry, didn't mean to do that, guys. I don't know if you can hear me with that now, but they've kept a lot under the vest at this time. So that could mean a lot of things in a lot of ways. So that being said, with the convention upcoming and starting Monday in Charlotte, and we'll conclude with the president's remarks or president's acceptance speech at the Rose Garden, not the Rose Garden, but on the lawn, I believe, at the White House in Washington. Next week will be an interesting turn of events to see what the Republican case for re-election will be. Presently, I'm not one to rely on polls, as I think we've all learned from 2016, polls may not be an indicative, reliable mark of an outcome, but you never know. Thus concludes my reports on the Democratic National Committee Convention 2020 from all over northern Nevada and California in the coronavirus era, in my attempt at trying to do what I can to update intel and document as we go. This historic moment, campaign, and election cycle. So, take care. I'm going to bed. I've got a lot of data to download. Good night and be safe.